Let's welcome to the program the Illinois Policy Institute's Vice President of Policy, Michael Lucci. Michael, good morning to you.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being on with us. Wish you were on with some really, really great news, but more about a job hemorrhage.
Yes, that's what we're looking at. Again, the Bureau of Labor Statistics put out the September job numbers for Illinois, and we lost about 7,000 jobs. About 1,800 of those were manufacturing jobs. So this carries on the trend that we've been seeing for years. It carries on the trend we've been seeing for the duration of this year also, which is Illinois is not keeping up with the neighbors when it comes to creating those good jobs that people want, those good jobs that will keep them in Illinois, keep them in Rockford, keep them in Decatur, keep them here, paying taxes here and growing their families here.
And yet, Michael, despite the loss of nearly 7,000 jobs, the unemployment rate actually was down to 5.4%, largely in part because the labor participation rate is at its lowest level in this state since way back in 1977.
That's right. We've seen what you call labor force dropout, and this is a bit of a complicated issue on the unemployment rate, but when people give up looking for work, they're no longer counted as unemployed. That's basically how that works. So what we've seen in Illinois is we've seen, roughly 250,000 people give up looking for work over the course of the Great Recession era here. And that continues. So when they drop out, when they give up looking for work, they're no longer counted as unemployed. They're just counted as not being in the workforce, not being people who are looking for work. So that's one of the things that's been driving down the unemployment rate over the recent years here.
Michael Lucci with us from Illinois Policy, illinoispolicy.org. Every time we talk about labor participation rates, somebody usually says, well, yeah, of course, all those baby boomers are retiring, so of course there's fewer people taking part in the labor force. But the data doesn't show that, does it, Michael?
That's true. What the data at the national level, and then Illinois in particular, show the same thing. The dropout is largely coming from younger age cohorts, especially the age cohort of like the 16 to 24-year-olds. The labor participation rate for the Illinois youth and for the American youth has really plummeted over this Great Recession era. And then on the higher end, the older groups, the people 65 and older, their labor participation rate has actually gone up, which is understandable because I think that anyone of that age would have some concerns about their financial security going into retirement, maybe put in a few more years of work than they'd otherwise planned. So the idea that it's just baby boomers retiring, which is driving down this participation rate, that's simply not true. That's not true at the national level. It's certainly not true at the Illinois level, where we saw the biggest dropouts came from first, actually from black men across Illinois, second from youth 16 to 24 years old, and then the next group that had a lot of dropout was Latino men. But we saw that dropout on all age cohorts across, the prime working age years. We actually saw an increased participation rate, as I said, from the baby boomers themselves. They've been sticking in the workplace a little bit longer, probably making sure that nest egg is very secure.
Spending some time with Illinois Policy Institute's Vice President of Policy, Michael Lucci. Michael, the thing about this report and manufacturing is just frightening when you look at the numbers that we lost in manufacturing jobs in September, and then you total up what we've lost for the year.
That's right. And this is something the Illinois Policy Institute is pushing very hard on. We've been losing these manufacturing jobs. We think that manufacturing is core to the state, not only the state's history, not only being a backbone industry, but this is where you make your middle class, especially if you're a Midwestern state. This is the industry where you literally manufacture your middle class. So you could have folks who, just went to high school, just went to a trade school. They could go into these jobs and make a pretty good wage and have enough to raise their family, put the kids to college. But those jobs are disappearing. Those good jobs that used to be in Rockford, used to be on the south side of Chicago, used to be in Decatur and Peoria, those jobs are disappearing. And you could say, well, this is a global issue. This is because of East Asia. This is because of Latin America taking those jobs away. It's simply not the case anymore. There was a time where that was what happened. But when you look at Illinois, we're losing manufacturing jobs. This year we've lost 12,500 manufacturing jobs. All the states around us are adding manufacturing jobs. All the states around us have been adding manufacturing jobs for 5 years, and we're basically flatlined or we're dropping manufacturing jobs. So it's no longer the case that we could just say, those jobs are going overseas. That's not what's happening. They're going over borders. They're going over to the Indiana side of the border, the Wisconsin side of the border, the Michigan side of the border, the Iowa side of the border, because we have policies here that are very prohibitive for manufacturers. And the manufacturers have said this over and over and over. The workers' compensation is crushing us. The property taxes are crushing us. Fix those problems so we can start creating these good jobs in Illinois so Illinoisans can be rewarded for their hard work, not just Hoosiers and folks from Michigan.
Michael Lucci with us from Illinois Policy, illinoispolicy.org. It's Riley and Scott on WROK. And I know you guys talk policy, not candidates specifically, Michael, but I've seen some people say, well, look, this is Bruce Rauner's fault. We have lost these 7,000 or so jobs in the month. He's now the governor. His policies are leading to this exodus of jobs. Quite frankly, Bruce Rauner hasn't had an opportunity to enact his agenda. This gets to the core of the budget fight, because Bruce Rauner says, look, if we are able to push through these reforms that I want, I believe it will help the business climate to attract jobs and businesses to Illinois. Democrats, by and large, are standing in the way, and Mike Madigan says no reforms, only tax hikes, and as a way to get this budget done. So really, Bruce Rauner's ideas, Bruce Rauner's proposals haven't even become law or haven't even been changed yet.
Right. Speaking just on the policy side of it, you have a governor coming in saying we need to change the policies so that we can grow manufacturing jobs again, grow other jobs too. And you have an opposition party that says, no, we don't want to do any of those reforms. The economy continues to be terrible. And then the opposition party is saying, oh, this is all the governor's fault. It's simply a myth. I mean, it's nonsense. A 5-year-old could pick apart what they're saying here. If we put into place some reforms, some structural reforms that allow job creation to come here again, then that's what we're going to get. We're going to get a turnaround and a recovery. But if we just keep going on this typical Illinois path where we say, let's not reform anything, let's not do economic reforms, let's not do political reforms, let's just keep raising taxes every time we have a problem, then we're going to keep getting these Illinois results that we've been getting for decades, which is slower job growth in neighboring states, more manufacturing exodus, and that will just keep going on and on. So for the guys who've presided over this policy disaster for a couple decades to say it's the new governor's fault, I mean, it's just short-sighted and it's just politics. What matters here is policy, because policy affects people's lives. Policy is what's going to allow the manufacturers to create those high-paying jobs in Illinois. Policy changes is what's going to allow people to have more and more opportunities. So instead of getting a pink slip and having no other options, you know, we could have a place like what's happening in Indiana or Texas where people get pink slips there and they've got other job options that they can immediately turn to. That's what we need here in Illinois, because when the Illinoisans get a pink slip, that has a very deep meaning. And what that means is you're not going to be able to provide for your family anymore. We need to have a state where when people get laid off, they have other ways to provide for their family, and that's not what's happening here right now.
Illinois Policy Institute's VP of Policy, Michael Lucci, is with us. Another one of the things that was just frightening when you talk about the manufacturing jobs drying up and people getting out of here and all that. When they go, it's more than just the job that leaves; it's that taxable income that goes as well. You point out in the piece that I'm looking at here, 2013, we lost 81,000 residents and $4.1 billion in taxable income. That went to other states.
And that's why we think that job creation is actually the number one issue that we need to address for the budget. What you just pointed out there, we had a record loss of taxpayers in 2013. That's the most recent year of data. We lost $4 billion of taxable income, annual taxable income. This has been going on and on and on. So when you keep driving out your tax base, of course you're going to have a budget problem every year. Any state that will drive out its tax base is going to have budget problems over and over and over because you're driving away your taxpayers. What we need is more jobs, more good jobs here, more taxpayers here, and that will actually go further than any other solution to solve our budget crisis. So if we actually recovered from the Great Recession in line with other states, we would have a much less severe budget problem. If we actually had job creation here and we actually kept our people here, the budget problem would almost not exist. We would have more people paying in and more economic growth here. So the number one issue that we'd like to see addressed that will affect the budget this year and in the long term is get job creation policies in place so we have more Illinoisans having more opportunities and paying more taxes because they just have more jobs here. This failing strategy of raise the taxes, do nothing else, and hope that fixes the problem, I mean, it's a total failure. And we see that from the migration numbers of the tax hike years where people are leaving the state.